Welcome back to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your continued support. Ladies and gentlemen, President William Ruto is a man who has been cornered. There is no an escape route for him. When he thinks he has extinguished one fire, another one is lit on the other end. President William Ruto thought that after capturing Raila Amolo Odinga and they are working together, he was going to have some peace of mind. And indeed, at some point, he thought he was going to have some peace of mind. But before he knew it, the man from Wamunyoro, Rigathi Gachagua, is injecting. And then comes the former Attorney General, J.B. Muturi. And then Meru and Mount Kenya has just erupted. As if that is not enough, BBC pops up with something that he thought was dead, and they are resuscitating, all these wounds. Now, we've all heard and seen and watched the documentary. Of course, we had known of the deaths, but there were some new findings about the KDF. But now we are being told that just like William Ruto blocked the echoes of war from being played at the national level, he also ordered the BBC to stop a private screening that was to take place in one of the hotels in Nairobi. After BBC released this very shocking documentary, it was a matter of interest, and so it had been scheduled to be screened live. Let me just read you what is said. It said here how the Kenyan government blocked viewing of BBC's film of police shooting protesters. Now, the BBC on Monday said that Kenyan government pressure led to the cancellation of a Nairobi screening of a documentary from the British Broadcasting identifying security officers suspected of shooting protesters dead. It continues to say a private screening was scheduled to take place at an upmarket cinema and a rooftop bar in the capital, Nairobi, followed by a panel discussion with some of the activists featured in the documentary. A BBC source told AFP on condition of anonymity, and they say a screening of BBC Africa Eyes Blood Parliament in Kenya was cancelled due to pressure from the authorities, a statement from BBC spokesperson said. The documentary has caused a stir online, with one Kenyan legislator calling for the ban of BBC Africa in the East African nation, that is Opondo Kaluma, the Homa Bay town member of parliament, a man who is now the prefect of the broad-based government. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to look at this very keenly, because now this has become a tendency. William Ruto does not want anything that is not in tandem with his policies. And I want to tell you why we want to discuss this. Let me remind you that just a year ago, some people went to the courts and they wanted William Ruto to stop the housing levy. They wanted to stop the transition of the medical care from the NHIF to the Taifa Care. And William Ruto warned them that he was not going to accept such kind of yokes, and even told us that he was given a sword to deal with such people. In fact, he went ahead to threaten the judges. Just recently, when Cleopas Malala wrote a play entitled Echoes of War, this play graduated from the school levels all the way to the nationals. Then it was stopped, and we saw students being tear gassed. So this has become a tendency. Why exactly is this happening? And why did the Kenyan government stop the screening? They were going to screen it live, and then there was going to follow a panel discussing this. If you are William Samoei Ruto, if you are a president, would you admit this screening? I want us to look at this very deeply. Before that, Please subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell, like and share our videos once again. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Why do you think William Ruto stopped this? You can imagine that this is something that William Ruto had considered the past and he thought he had gotten away with it. Then all of a sudden, it comes out. And you know, we are in a world that is now global. The social media has made the world to be a very small village for us. So this was being followed internationally because BBC is not a local channel for me. And this was going to give people an opportunity to look at it afresh with more keen interest. You watch this on the YouTube because now they cannot ban it on YouTube. And you could see the metadata they were using and how they were trying to, it came out to be very credible. So you can only imagine that people are going to look at this with more even keen interest. Those who had not even watched it before, some Kenyans in the diaspora, other people, because William Ruto has hit the international headlines. I told you just the other day, Gachagua said that he invited Himedi, the leader of the rebel group that is causing havoc in Sudan. And so by the mention of William Samoei Ruto, people will develop a keen interest. So William Ruto stopped this so that many people should not watch it, because you can imagine being screened and then it is being discussed by people like Boniface Mwangi. It was going to really expose William Samoei Ruto. Number two, in an already volatile situation, this was going to trigger even dangerous emotions. We have parents who lost their children. Not only were those youths, killed in parliament, but there were another follow-ups. You remember our lovely, Gen Z, those university students, some of them were just found dumped because it seems that the silent squad was following them. So it was going to elicit and trigger emotion. The parents were going to look at this. The youths were going to be reminded, this is how some of us died. This could even take people to the streets once again. The emotional part of it. A few hours ago, police killed 5 people in Narok in a clash, a controversy that involved some piece of land, some parcel. So you can imagine what would happen. And so William Ruto decided, I'm not going to do this because the country is already volatile. The other reason why this happened, I can assure you that Raila was going to bolt out. Raila has said already he has differed with William Ruto on the basis of not obeying what they agreed upon, and William Ruto withholding some money at the national level rather than taking it to the county level. And with this, with a lot of pressure from Gen Zs, I'm sure Raila would have given a statement. If that play would have been screened, maybe Raila would have come out and said, this is not possible, we need investigations. This would, loosen the nuts that have held tightly the broad-based government. Because remember, this is also exposing Raila. When he went there, it was at the height of Gen Z's killing, and they have said Raila betrayed us. And they have nicknamed him a lot of names. So Raila would decide between pleasing William Ruto and pleasing Gen Z. What would he do? Because already Raila is laying an exit strategy. So Ruto knows very well that anything that elicits emotions, Raila would be under a lot of pressure to explain his interest when the BBC has come out. You can imagine what Wamunyoro would say. I'm still waiting for a statement from Brigadier Gachagua, because it's the first person who said youths were killed illegally. It was going to be very bad. It was all going to paint William Ruto's government as bloodthirsty, full of dictatorship. And to me, this could be the reason why William Ruto decided to stop this. It's all dictatorial, because I mentioned to you some of the events. Whenever you don't agree with William Ruto, it is either his highway or his way. You remember mambo ni matatu? You have to toe the line. So the BBC decided to cancel that after a lot of pressure. And I'm even thinking, do you think Farouk Kibet could stomach this being aired anywhere? They could not. And I think they would even try to remove it from YouTube. I don't know any mechanism they can use, but they will do anything. But let me end by saying this. It is too little, too late, because millions and millions of Kenyans have watched this on YouTube. So the damage has already been done. All they can do is to let the sleeping dog lie. Any more movement, anything that they say will even trigger more emotions. If I were the government, I would let this end. But let me tell you what is likely to happen. The government can create something else in the country. You will see something happening, something sensational, something that can grab headlines, something that make people, forget and think away from the BBC thing. And you will understand that the deep state and the NIS are planning how to make people forget. In fact, let us give it just a day or two. Something will happen in the country just to ensure that people no longer watch this, people no longer read this, people no longer talk about this. That's my take.